All right, so today we're going to be talking about parts of the machine and how the machine works. Let's start on the right of your machine. This piece right here is called the bobbin winder. The bobbin winder is where you'll actually put your bobbin, which is a clear little plastic piece that we will thread to make the machine work. It goes in the bottom part of the machine, which is kind of overwhelming right now, so let me just go over the basics of the bobbin winder. When the bobbin winder is to the left, that means it's in drive, which means your needle will go up and down. When your bobbin winder is to the right, it's in neutral, which means your needle will not go up and down, and the only thing that moves is your bobbin. Let me show you what I mean by this. So if I turn my machine on, and I have my foot control on the floor, when my bobbin winder is to the right, the only thing that moves is the bobbin winder itself. The needle is not going up and down. When the bobbin winder is to the left, the needle, I don't know if you can see this, the needle is actually moving up and down. So that's meaning your machine is ready to sew. So bobbin winder to the left, drive, to the right, neutral. All right, so on the top of your machine is the spool pin. The spool pin is going to be a horizontal rod that's attached to your machine. If you don't see one of these on the top of your machine right now, yours is broken, and you'll have a detached spool pin, which you should be able to find in your flatbed attachment. This spool pin, the detached one, just make sure the bottom circle is going downward and it just goes into the hole next to the handle, and that will hold your spool of thread. So this is an example of a spool of thread. So if you have a vertical spool pin, it's just going to be placed right on top of your spool pin, and then you'll proceed to thread from there. If you have a horizontal spool pin, you'll place your spool of thread on the horizontal spool pin, and then always put your cap on the outside to secure that thread so it won't fall off while you're sewing. Alright, so there are 3 dials on the top of your machine. We'll start with the left and we'll work our way down and across. So the dial on the far left is called the upper tension control dial. One way to remember this dial is it kind of looks like you're turning the volume up on your remote. So this dial always needs to be set at a 4. These settings are very important when you're beginning to sew. If they're not at the correct settings, then it could affect how you're stitching. So the upper tension control dial should be set at a 4. The dial in the middle is called the stitch width dial. It should always be set at a 4 as well. One way to remember the stitch width dial is these mountains get wider and wider and wider. So width refers to how wide something is. The dial on the far right is the stitch length dial. One way to remember this dial is these little rectangles are getting longer and longer and longer. Length refers to how long something is. This dial should be set at a 2.5, and you can see right here on the numbers on the actual sewing machine, the 2.5 is indicated by the little circle in between the 3 and the 2. And then this bottom dial, the last dial that we need to focus in on, is called the this last dial that you need to know about for your settings before you start sewing is called the pattern indicator window. The pattern indicator window should be set at a 2/20. And if you notice these stitch settings on the top of your machine, a 2/20 is a straight stitch, which is what you're going to be doing. Some of these others indicate buttonholes or zigzag stitching. When you're in 7th grade, you can kind of play around with those stitchings a little bit, but in 6th grade, we're just going to work on the 2/20. So just as a reminder with these dials, let's start at the far left. Upper tension control dial, which should be at a 4. Stitch width dial should be at a 4. Stitch length dial should be at a 2.5. And then the pattern indicator window should be at a 2/20. So sometimes I like to just practice saying 4, 4, 2.5, 2/20. Can you say that with me? 4, 4, 2.5, 2/20. All right, the dial on the top of your machine, the top right dial, is called the hand wheel. The hand wheel controls the needle. I don't know if you can see the needle going up and down right now. So you always want to go towards yourself, never away from yourself. When you go backwards with the hand wheel, you risk, once you have thread in your machine for both the top and the bobbin, that it can clog underneath and then you'll have issues trying to sew. So always go towards yourself, never away from yourself. So this is called the hand wheel. The bottom wheel, just because some of you might have questions about it, is actually the pattern indicator window. So if you wanted to change the window and change your stitches, you would just change the wheel. Sometimes if you notice your machine isn't sewing at all, check, because it could be a 1 over nothing. Or you notice it's a zigzag of some sort, double check that pattern indicator window. It's a big indicator, so it should always say 2 over 20. If we work our way over to the machine a little bit on the left-hand side, this is called the reverse lever. So the reverse lever is not like a light switch that you can just press up and down and it turns it on and off. You actually have to hold onto it the whole time you're back stitching. And you'll learn a little bit more about back stitching in a later video. But this is called the reverse lever. So when we're back stitching, you're always going to back stitch at the beginning and the end of each line to lock those stitches in. If you do not back stitch, then all of your stitches are going to risk getting unraveled and then you have to go back and fix it. So back stitch always at the beginning and the end. And again, you'll have to hold that down while you're sewing. The next part we need to identify is the presser foot. So the presser foot is controlled by the presser foot lever, which I'm gently pushing down and up right now. I have my pointer finger underneath it and my thumb on top. Notice I'm not snapping it. What happens when you snap it is you risk that presser foot getting loose and then the needle rubs against the presser foot. So you're sewing, 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 and eventually that needle could snap back and hit you. So you want to make sure you're gently lowering that presser foot. You will be raising and lowering it frequently every time you begin and end a stitch. So just be very, very gentle with those presser foots. I shouldn't hear any snapping. That's a huge no-no. What the presser foot does is it actually holds the fabric against the needle plate as you're sewing. I don't know if you can kind of see these teeth underneath the presser foot. So if I'm moving the needle right now, do you see some teeth going up and down? Those teeth are called the feed, F-E-E-D, the feed. And the feed is what moves the fabric or moves the paper as you're sewing. So you're going to have your presser foot down and that's what keeps it in control. On the front of your machine is a piece called the flatbed attachment, and it just opens and closes. Inside your flatbed attachment there will be 3 cards, a green card, a yellow card, and a pink card. These cards are going to be used throughout the time that you're sewing. Instead of raising your hand in my class, you're just going to put a card on the left-hand side of your machine. You'll have a piece of Velcro. Those cards indicate to the teacher or to the student helpers what you need help with. So the green card is going to tell the teacher that you need a pen check. A pen check just means that before you start sewing, the teacher's made sure that you've pinned the right sides together. So a green card is only for a pen check. The yellow card is if you need a student helper. So there are big teamwork cards that you will see on a few machines. The students that are excelling or are doing very well and can communicate with other students will have a teamwork card on the side of their machine. They are the people that you can go to for help. So maybe you really don't understand how to thread your machine, or you just can't put your bobbin in right, or you don't understand the instructions for the day. Put a yellow card up and those student helpers will come help you. The last card is the pink card, which is an emergency. Now an emergency is not, oh my gosh, my finger's stuck underneath the needle. An emergency is, yes, that's an emergency, but the type of emergency that we're referring to for the pink card is for your machine being clogged. That's the only kind of emergency that this pink card. I would hope if it's a severe emergency, you are running over to the teacher to get her attention. So those cards, the green, yellow, and pink cards, go in the little plastic bed called the flatbed attachment, and it just closes. In 7th grade, you will actually take those flatbed attachments off. But for now, you're going to leave them on. So that leads us with our very last piece of equipment, our part of the machine, which is called the foot control. A good way to remember the foot control is it's controlled by your foot. So the presser foot, you press up and down. The foot control is controlled by your foot. Every single day, your foot control should go up behind your machine on the table, and you'll have to gently put it down on the floor. The foot control controls the speed of the machine, and it's actually the only way, besides turning on the power switch, the on-off switch, to start and stop your machine. So I'm going to find a controlled speed with my foot, and to take it off will stop the machine. Please do not speed while you're in the room. Speeding can lead to catastrophes. The on-off switch is located on the bottom right-hand part of your machine. To turn it on, you're going to press up, so it's the line indicating that it's on. The circle indicator tells us that the machine is off.